Our top story. Today, a group of negotiators from Hamas have arrived in Cairo for truce talks, even as the ceasefire with Israel appears increasingly precarious. The Palestinian group said its visit is aimed at ending what it called the current crisis. Yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echoed a warning from the US President Donald Trump, saying the war in Gaza would resume if Hamas did not release Israeli hostages by this Saturday. The Israeli military has also begun calling up reservists in preparation for a possible return of the fighting. Well, let's start by listening to Netanyahu himself speaking last night.
If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday at noon, the ceasefire will end and the Israeli Defense Forces will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated.
Well, no surprise then that there is a significant fear in Gaza at the prospect of a resumption of Israeli airstrikes. 15 months of war there have killed over 40,000 Palestinians, and some 90% of the population has been displaced. Here's the view from Rafah earlier on today.
From the moment we heard this news, our hearts sank. The whole country was shaken. We'd barely started believing that a truce would happen and that a solution was on the way, God willing. We're calling on Hamas, and we're calling on Israel. We ask them to reach an agreement and put an end to this situation. The people are suffering. The people are the victims.
Israel must release the prisoners and abide by the agreements, and Hamas must also adhere to the agreements for the sake of the people. The people are completely exhausted. There is no country in the world that is protecting us.
Well, there is concern too in Israel about the possible resumption of the war, particularly among the families of hostages who remain in Gaza.
It's a shock. We're trying to analyze it. We're trying to think what are the possibilities. We want to believe that both sides and the mediators can sit down and solve this issue.
I hope the ultimatum we heard from Trump will speed the negotiation and make all stages coming quickly. We saw it's going on, hostages come back, but what we saw on Saturday says that we can't wait so long for all of them.
Donald Trump has not only demanded the hostages be released by this weekend, he's also called on Jordan and Egypt to take in Palestinians on a large scale so the United States can, quote, take over Gaza and begin a giant redevelopment of the enclave. Human rights groups say such forced displacement from Gaza would amount to ethnic cleansing, and both Amman and Cairo have strongly opposed the idea. Well, to discuss the challenges then for Jordan and for Egypt and how they may now try to work with a Donald Trump White House, I'm pleased to welcome to the programme Neil Quilliam. He's a senior Middle East research fellow at Chatham House. Hello to you and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Look, I'd like to talk about Jordan first of all. King Abdullah met with Trump yesterday at the White House. Now, Abdullah did not publicly discuss Trump's resettlement plan, but he did say he would take in a number of Palestinian children who need medical treatment. Let's just hear, first of all, a little of the exchange between the two leaders.
I think one of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in a very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
So I want to tell you, excuse me, wait, just please. I didn't know that what you just said, 2,000 children with cancer or other problems, and that's really a beautiful gesture.
And Mr. Quilliam, how do you think King Abdullah handled those remarks to the press alongside Donald Trump?
I mean, I think he dealt with them very adeptly, very diplomatically. I mean, you can see from his language, from his body language as well, that he's been put in a very uncomfortable position. So he was stretching, he was doing his utmost to charm the president and also offer a very small piecemeal kind of solution, and that's taking on 2,000 children suffering from cancer or other illnesses. I mean, that's probably as far as he can go. So he reached out, he's offered the utmost, but he was placed in a really difficult position.
Well, you say that's probably as far as King Abdullah is able to go. Just spell out for us why that is.
I mean, he can't take Palestinians from Gaza. I mean, one, he would be complicit in population transfer. He would be playing a role in part of that. Two, I mean, how does that actually happen? I mean, there are the sort of physical and logistical dimensions behind that. And three, demographically, I mean, what is he going to take 1 million from Gaza or 500,000 Palestinians? I mean, we know that it's illegal. We know that it's tantamount to ethnic cleansing. So he can't be complicit in that. And certainly his own country, I mean, has already 1.4 million Palestinian refugees, has something in the region of 1.2 million Syrian refugees and hosts of other refugees. So it would place a tremendous burden on the country. But also he knows that if they came, they wouldn't be going back. They're not coming as refugees as such. They would remain there and have a permanent presence. Neither Egypt nor Jordan is in a position to take that many Palestinians, and certainly wouldn't want to.
I suppose one of the big challenges, though, for Jordan is the amount of money it does get from the United States, money that Trump has suggested the United States could simply cut. I mean, in 2023, Jordan was the fourth highest recipient of American aid. Do you think that money could be cut, and what impact would there be if so?
I mean, it's difficult to know whether it could be cut. I mean, Trump also said yesterday that they can rise above cutting that aid, and that aid is released in 5-year cycles. So they're mid-cycle at the moment. But that doesn't mean that Trump couldn't put it on, I guess, on a kind of a permanent hold or a strong pause. I mean, that 1.4 billion a year cut would be tremendously difficult for Jordan. I mean, they are, largely dependent on external support and external aid, so it would really compromise, the Jordanian economy and the security. So it would put the country at considerable risk. But Jordan's stability, I think, not to overplay it, but Jordan's stability would be at risk. But that in itself is a security risk for Israel. So it doesn't make sense to cut that aid, even if it's concern for the security of Israel or the security of the region. But we can see from Trump, his policies don't always make absolute sense. But the question is, does he really have the will to push ahead with this, or is there enough kind of heft in the system to mitigate and to push against it and to advise otherwise?
Well, let's turn our attention then to Egypt, because there are reports today, unconfirmed reports, I should say, but there is reporting that the Egyptian leader, Sisi, won't actually meet Trump at all if Trump keeps this demand on the table that Egypt, like Jordan, take in, hundreds of thousands, if not over a million Palestinians. What do you think Egypt's strategy now is? Because like Jordan, it's very dependent on financial support from the United States.
I mean, I think the ball almost sits kind of in Egypt's court, and word is coming out of Egypt that they do want to work towards sort of a reconstruction plan. And you heard King Abdullah yesterday say that the Egyptians, the Jordanians are going to be meeting with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, soon to sort of hammer out an alternative. And I think that is the only option. And in a way, one hopes, in a benevolent sense, that Trump's rhetoric, that his very strong position is intended to sort of throw down the gauntlet and get the Arab states to come together and come up with a plan that has a political and economic and a reconstruction dimension to it. I think that's the only thing they can really do to sort of push back, or at least persuade Trump that his plan is just completely unworkable. It's dangerous for the region, and it's completely illegal too.
Well, I suppose the question is for Donald Trump, does he care, actually, whether a plan is illegal, and does he care if he puts more people in the Middle East in danger?
The answer to that might be no, but then how do you operationalize that? I mean, what does it actually mean to move 2 million people? I mean, who's going to do the moving? How is that going to happen? I mean, that in itself, is the US going to put boots on the ground to make that happen? Or are they just going to sort of say to Israel, do whatever you want? But I can't see how that can possibly happen, whether he likes it or not, or whether he wishes it or not. How do you actually operationalize such an ill thought out plan? That's going to be like a fly in the ointment for him, or at least something that's going to make this idea hopefully just disappear.
And look, if we zoom out a little bit here, what role do you think other big Middle East powers, other allies of the United States like Saudi Arabia, may play in the weeks ahead as we try to think about how these Arab countries navigate this relationship with Donald Trump?
I mean, I think it's about the Arab states coming together, working together. There is a clear common course, and I think you can see the leaders cooperating and coordinating on this piece. And I think that is going to be what they're going to have to do. And this is why and how they're going to have to come up with an alternative plan. But at the moment, what you have, Arab leaders coming together and really pulling together, and clearly Arab populations behind that. So in a way, there are divisions, but there is a kind of a clear sense of unity on this one issue. That pulls everybody together. It's really kind of galvanizing leaders and obviously highly sensitizing the region.
Neil Quilliam, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Now staying with this story, halfway around the world in Bangkok, 5 Thai farmers who were freed last week in the latest swap between Israel and Hamas are adjusting to their new lives back home in Thailand. Now among them is Wachara Siun. France 24's Oliver Farry has his story.
Days after returning home, Wachara Siun joins his community in prayer in northern Thailand. He spent almost 500 days in captivity in Gaza after being abducted on October 7, 2023, from the kibbutz in southern Israel, where he worked tending avocados and potatoes. Wachara says he was aware of the risks before heading to Israel, but felt he had little choice but to go.
When I first went, it was exciting, but there was also fear because I knew the country was at war. Still, I had to go. I wanted my family to have a better life, and I wanted my daughter to get an education.
On the morning of October 7th, he awoke to text alerts on his phone. When he left his room, he was surrounded by Hamas gunmen. While in captivity, he survived on cheese, tomatoes and cucumbers, though supplies of food and water were not always available. Finally, in late January, he and 2 fellow Thai captives got the good news they'd be free.
They told us there would be a ceasefire. That time, I believed it. I even saw them firing guns in the air in celebration.
Now he wants to make up for lost time and spend it with his family, whom he hadn't seen in nearly 5 years.
I want to help my father and take my daughter to visit different places because I haven't been with her for so long. My parents are getting older and can't do much anymore. I want to be the one to take care of them, to make their lives easier because they've struggled for so long.
A total of 41 Thai labourers were killed in the October 7th attacks and 30 kidnapped. Thailand's foreign ministry believes 1 Thai national is still in captivity in Gaza.